All right, welcome to another episode of the Denway Podcast. I think it's going to be a good one today. My guest, Michael Levitt. Hopefully, I'm saying it right. He just said it now. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but we're going to talk a little bit about burnout, workplace culture, all those good things, and some other things in the middle. So, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you so much. Really looking forward to our chat today.
Yes, sir. So where you from?
Originally from Metro Detroit, I'm hitting all of the original six NHL cities. So I've worked or lived in five of the six cities. Excuse me. So Detroit, Chicago, Toronto. I've done some work in Boston and in New York. Montreal is the last one. I have not done any work in Montreal yet, but eventually, that could happen, and then I could proudly wear the original six hat and say I've lived or worked in all of the cities. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm originally from Metro Detroit.
Okay, yeah, my family's from Detroit as well. I grew up in
Beautiful.
Maryland, but yeah, my family's from Detroit. Tell me a little about what you do. I talked about burnout, but how did you get started um, in this expertise, kind of?
Through my own journey with burnout, back in 2007, I was hired as a healthcare executive for a startup healthcare clinic in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, just across the border from Detroit.
Hmm.
And that plays a big deal when I get to what happened to me in a moment. But I had a lot of startup experience in my career, but I'd never worked in healthcare before. So I had a really steep learning curve to learn all I needed to know about running a medical clinic. I knew, doctors' offices because I'd gone into them as a patient before, but running one is a completely different game. So there were a lot of hours involved, and I was working just some insane hours. Any
Hmm.
entrepreneur knows, even a small business owner, or even if you're working in a startup company, there's a lot of hours involved. And I was putting in some absolutely insane hours. And I did it rock solid for 2 years. And it all came to a crashing halt in May of 2009, where over a period of a year, so from May 2009 to May 2010, I had a heart attack that should have killed me, and then
Wow.
and then I lost my job during the Great Recession. And this is why it's important where I was in Windsor, across the border from Detroit. The auto sector, as you know from your family, is gigantic in the Detroit area, and both General Motors and Chrysler had filed bankruptcy and had to get bailed out by the government in order to survive. So when you have some of the largest employers in an area getting ready to fold, needless to say, that has a huge economic impact on the area. So it was again during the Great Recession, so there wasn't hardly any jobs to be found.
Hmm.
And I after having my cardiac event, and 17 weeks later after I recovered from it, the organization wanted to go in a different direction, so they laid me off. So here I am, fresh off a heart attack, now no job. And it took me months to find a new role, which ended up requiring a relocation to Toronto, where there were opportunities there for me to be able to, you know, find work and all of that. So here I am, heart attack, job loss, relocation to a city that I'd visited a few times but had never lived in before. Had to uproot my family, move the family there, and then while I was up there, my family was still back in the Detroit area because we were
Hmm.
getting ready to sell our house because we had found the job in Toronto. So I was up in my new job for a couple weeks, and then my oldest daughter, who was 10 years old at the time, called me at work and was crying, and I couldn't understand the things she was saying. And finally, I got from her that the bank had come and repossessed our family vehicle. Because
Oh
when
no.
you have a heart attack and you lose your job, you don't have insurance coverage. And I was on heart
Hmm.
medication that cost $1,000 a month out of pocket. I had no insurance. So when you are on unemployment, if anybody's ever had the fortune of that, you don't get a full paycheck. You get like a partial check. That partial check was basically enough to cover my heart medication and the food for the family. We'd
Hmm.
worked with our creditors and the banks and all that kind of good stuff, so they knew what was going on. But again, during the Great Recession, there was a lot of people that were going through the same problem. So the banks, they only can do so much. And eventually they have to say, well, you're not making your payments. We have to take, the vehicle back,
Mhm.
which they did. And was never upset with the bank. I, I didn't make a payment. They had the right to take the
Mhm.
car back. They did. And continued to bank with that bank for years. So it wasn't a case where I'm like, I'm going to show them. No, it wasn't their fault. I'm the one that didn't make the payment. So after all of that, we finally found a place to move the family to. So move the family up. After we were unpacking the moving truck and all of that, we realized, oops, we forgot the bunk bed ladder for our kids' bed.
Mhm.
So I was going back to the Windsor area that following weekend to close up some accounts and all that. And I said, well, I'll just swing by the house and grab the ladder and anything else we may have left behind because we were getting ready to list the house, I think the following week or maybe the week after. So I go visit, close up the accounts, go to the house to, get the ladder and look around. And I opened up the screen door, the front door, and I saw the biggest padlock I've ever seen in my life. You can't buy this padlock at Home Depot. They don't sell it there. And there was a
Mm.
sticker on the door that said foreclosure.
Wow.
Um, so heart attack, job loss, car repossession, home foreclosure, all in a year's time. And all those things happened to me because I was burned out. When you're burned out, you don't make good decisions. You're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, you're making mistakes at work. So everything that could possibly go wrong in my situation did. It was, obviously a very challenging year for me to go through, but it was one that I thankfully look upon it and go, you know what? I had a second chance
Mhm.
because the type of heart attack that I had and the blockages where I had them, I had blockages in my left anterior descending artery. And in cardiology world, that artery has a nickname. It's called the widowmaker because
Mhm.
usually when you have blockages in that artery and you have a heart attack, statistically speaking, you usually don't survive. Well, that was 2009. We are 2025 now, coming up on an anniversary in a couple months. I'm still here, thankfully.
Sure.
And I recognize that and I go, okay, I'm getting another opportunity at this. How do I want to approach it? And I always, when I talk with people that are burning out or are burned out, I tell them, okay, in order for you to get back to a more healthy state for you, whatever that looks like, usually you don't have to reinvent your life. My choice, I decided I need to reinvent how I was going about life because obviously based on that year, I wasn't doing it right. So I needed
Mhm.
to really take stock in okay, well, let's figure out what Mike 2.0 looks like. And it took time and effort, probably longer. If I would have worked with a therapist, it probably would have got through it a little bit faster,
Yeah.
but I didn't, and I recommend something I share all the time. I recommend everyone should have a therapist. There's something
Mhm.
in your life, doesn't need to be a trauma. It doesn't need to be something that happened to you that was bad. It could just be, a block or some kind of confidence issue or something, to get the courage to do something to get your business to where it is to the next level or just, improving your relationships with people. There's all kinds of different things therapists are good for, and there's never been more access to it. It's getting more and more affordable. A lot of health insurance plans cover some of it. I wish they would cover more. Hopefully in time they will, but one battle at a time. But I think for me, after recovering from all of that, I thought, okay, well, what happened? What were my decisions, my choices, my beliefs, my habits, all of these things that created the scenario for me to burn out like I did? So I unpacked all of that and then I went, all right, how am I going to approach this again? When I go into back to work, how am I going to do it differently so that doesn't happen to me again? And that's the work that I did. And it's the work that I do today, working with individuals and teams, is I don't want people to burn out ever. But unfortunately, by the time they find me, they're kind of already there or they're rapidly approaching it. So it's like, okay, well, let's let's get you back to a healthy state. And again,
Yeah.
your definition of what healthy looks to you, not mine,
Mm,
yours. And from there, if you want to, then we can start digging deeper to figure out, okay, why did we end up here? How did we end up in this burned out state? What happened? What were the ingredients? So that way you can reverse engineer it. Say, all right, I don't want to do that again. Why is that
mm,
important to me? Why did I want to work all those hours? Why did I sign up for this job? All these things. But the key thing, and this is hard for a lot of people because we beat ourselves up all the time. We second guess ourselves. We're mean to ourselves, which we got to stop doing that because there's no one you'll spend more time with in this life than yourself. So you got to figure out a way to love yourself. Figure it out. And again, if you have difficulty with that, that's where therapists can help you because you're awesome. You're here for a
yeah.
reason, and the sooner you find out what that reason is and you connect with it and it becomes part of you, then life tastes better. It doesn't say
Yeah.
I'm not saying life gets easier. Oh no, I'm not making that promise. Oh no. Oh no. Not no, in today's world. Are you kidding me? Nothing's
Mhm.
easy. I don't care what your political flavor is. I don't care where you're at on one side or the other. It doesn't matter. It's not easy right now. But has it ever been? Probably not. But challenging times make stronger people. So
For
that's why
sure.
I do. That's why I do what I do.
Now let me ask you this: are there different levels to burnouts? So, like level one, I just need a little bit more sleep in life, and
Hmm.
number two, I to number 10, like boundaries, setting boundaries and saying
Hmm.
no. I have to say no sometimes. So there are different types of burnouts that you can go through that can
Oh yeah.
potentially help you out with it.
Yeah, I see a lot of people. Sleep is when people say, is there a magic bullet or a magic pill to prevent
Mm-hmm.
burnout? And I tell them, no, but if you can get your sleep routine right for you, because everybody's a little bit different on how much sleep they need and all of that. But if you can get a good night of sleep consistently, it does so much in giving you the ability to navigate through stressful situations because burnout is prolonged unaddressed stress.
Mm-hmm.
If you're stressed all the time, that's one thing. If it's not addressed and you're not doing anything to kind of alleviate it a bit, that's when you can start flirting with burnout. And if you can mitigate that and keep it somewhat in check, then you won't burn out. But sleep is so important because when we get good sleep, that's when we repair the damage that we've done to ourselves today. I don't care how healthy you live, you get all kinds of exercise, you eat nothing but great foods for you, and life is amazing. Well, we still do damage to ourselves based on either the air we breathe, what we eat, the information we consume. It's challenging out there, and so I tell people that you mentioned boundaries. You got to have boundaries around what you consume, not just the food side of things, but the information, the interactions with people, relationships. No is a complete sentence, and sometimes you have to say no to things. And is it going to make people mad at you? Yep. Guess what? It's not my opinion what someone thinks about me. It just isn't. You have to get to that. I don't care what they think about me. I'm going to go about being the best version of me, and when I do that, then when I do choose to help out people or serve or work somewhere, they're getting the best version of me, which is easier to do because you're rested, you're operating in a state of flow. You're not tired or fatigued. And what happens is if you're not sleeping well, and that starts piling up over days and then weeks or months, then you're really running the risk of having some either cognitive challenges or physical challenges, like clogged arteries, for example. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go there. In talking with my cardiologist, when I go in for my checkups and all of that, I've noticed, over the last few years that his patient roster of patients is getting younger. Used to, when I first went in there, I was the kid, because I had my first heart, I had my only heart attack, knock on wood. I had my heart attack at age 40, which is young. Last time I went in for a checkup, I talked with him. I said, is your patient population getting a little younger? and he had a 34-year-old patient that recently had a heart attack. 34. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I know what's going on. It's like it's there's so many stressors out there, and we're inundated with information. We don't have a filter or a boundary on what we consume, so we get overwhelmed, and the pressures, financial pressures, ingredients in foods, our choices on that avenue, and relationships, and you name it. It's not easy to be someone that is younger than me. I'm not going to be like some of the older generations, like, you kids have it so easy. No, they do not. I'm Gen X, and I'll stand on the tallest soapbox I can find, and I will say the millennial generation, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha that's coming into the mix now, they do not have it easier than I did. It's harder for them. I see that from my vantage point. Like, it's harder for them. It's harder to buy a home. It's harder to find good work. It's harder to find relationships and friendships, and finding your way in life. It's hard for them. And that's why we're seeing mid 30s people having cardiac events, because life is not easy. But there's a way to navigate around that. A lot of it is mindset. A lot of it is just doing whatever you can to be the best version of you, and figuring out what that is and what that looks like, and being really, really stringent on taking care of yourself first. It's easy for me to say. I know it's not easy to do, because I had to do it myself. It's not just, "Oh, I'll just do this and this and I won't do that." Well, it's easier said than done. And it's a challenging time for a lot of people.
You're definitely right. I mean, especially in this time where you can get any type of news you want to. Sometimes I gotta like kind of shut off because I'm so stressed out, even with things that are going on in the world. And you talk about stuff we eat, stuff we consume. We gotta, I need to do a better job with establishing some boundaries with things I intake in my personal life. But I'm like, it's definitely hard. So I definitely understand. Now I'm turning 40 years old in April 7th, so right around the corner. It's March
Happy
31st. So
happy early birthday.
thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm still trying to learn. I'm still learning how to say no and establish those boundaries in my life. And it does feel good to say no sometimes
Mm-hmm.
and not care what other people think. That burden sometimes it feels good to just take that. Like, look, I'm not doing that.
Yep.
Maybe 2 weeks ago I was going to do that. Last year I was going to do that, but I'm not that type of person anymore.
Yep.
So
You just
it
have
feels
to,
good.
yeah. You're protecting yourself. You're taking care of yourself, and that's because then that way, whatever you do, anything for somebody, they're getting a better version of you, and that's what I see a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, but all walks of life, but entrepreneurs, where they'll get in trouble and overwhelm themselves and eventually burn out is, they say yes to a lot of things, and
Hmm.
each of those things on paper you look at, it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for you to do. That could grow your business or this and this. But unfortunately, when you're saying yes to all these things, you're spreading yourself thin. And when you do that, that's when you're setting yourself up for being overwhelmed, not being able to accomplish everything. You're trying to do too many things at once, which means you're not going to do a great job. Narrowing your focus and picking a couple things a day to focus on, and just drill in and focus on those things. What you'll find is, if you start that practice, you'll get better at it. And I actually saw, it was a video I saw actually this morning, from a neuroscientist, and they said that a lot of our goals and tasks that we try to do,
Hmm.
sometimes we look at something and we're like, oh, that's too much. I can't take that on. I'm not going to be able to get that done. It's just going to be too hard. And some of the studies that they've been hearing and they've been doing is this 30-minute block of time, where
Hmm.
basically you try to split up these goals. Let's say it's a bigger goal or whatever. You try to split them up into 30-minute blocks, where in 30 minutes you can accomplish or finish a component of it. And the reason why, for some reason, our brain can handle a 30-minute task. If we say, oh, it's going to take me a couple hours, all of a sudden our brain naturally goes, I don't know if I can do that. But our brain goes, I can do a half an hour. So if you can, depending on what you're working on, if you can break it up into 30-minute blocks, maximum 2 or 3 of those 30-minute blocks a day. Oh, and I'm not saying you don't do anything else for the rest of the day. That'd be awesome though. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, it's Netflix time, kids. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna binge watch Daredevil. I haven't seen any new episodes yet. Boom, let's go. That's on Disney Plus. But anyway, Disney. I don't know if Disney sponsors your show. I probably you can edit that out if they don't. But they
I
should. But
wish.
yeah. Okay. Disney's got money. I would like some
Yeah.
instead of taking it from me. I'd like them to give me some back. But if that 30-minute block, for some reason, convinces your brain that yeah, I can do that, and then if you can focus on that for 30 minutes, set a timer on your phone or get an egg timer, do something, and just focus on that over time. And this is from my own personal experience, and I've seen studies on it as well. You get really good at what you do and you actually accomplish more in less time because you're focused on it. And we're naturally scatterbrained, and social media and everything going on in the world can pull our attention in every direction possible. It's hard for us to focus.
Yeah.
And when we can focus, then our attention is on that. And then
Mhm.
the brain's going to say, don't forget this, or you're supposed to do this. Those thoughts are going to come. I wish they
Mhm.
didn't, but they do. The key thing is when that thought comes to mind. Let's say you're working on a spreadsheet, it's for a
Mhm.
report, or you're doing SEO work and you're optimizing this company's website and getting all the meta tags and all that stuff squared away. So
Mhm.
you're focusing on that, and all of a sudden, the back of your head's like, I got to do that proposal for this company for something that's completely different, and it's in your brain, and your brain's going, oh, I got to do this. It's one of those things where when a thought comes to mind, it's there. Don't pretend
Mhm.
it's not. It showed up. You can just say, hey, thanks for stopping by. Glad you came by, thought. But right now I'm focusing on this. I'm going to write you down on a piece of paper. We'll deal with your situation later. Okay, great. And as silly as that sounds, if you just write it down on a post-it note or a little piece of paper, it's like SEO proposal or something like that.
Mhm.
That way, it tells your brain and tells that thought that comes in, I'm going to deal with it. I'm not ignoring
Mhm.
you, but I'm going to deal with it, but not right now. Okay. And then eventually that thought fades away and you can get back to focus. Just like everything, it's a practice. It takes time. You get better at it. But again, our thoughts come to our minds because, well, our minds just do that. It's just, I could be thinking about, nothing at all. And all of a sudden a thought comes up about my grandmother's kitchen table, for example. It's like,
Yeah.
why am I thinking about that? She hasn't been around since 2002. Like, why am I thinking about that table? Could be something where I see pattern or a color in
Mhm.
my purview that reminds me of a tablecloth, and I go, oh yeah.
Mhm.
It could be something as simple as that, and go, oh, there's that. Okay, that's what it is. Identify it, and then you park it, and you continue on with what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah. And I agree because when I do work, I really hate looking at my laptop all day. Um, I'm a cigar smoker, so I like going to the cigar lounge and having my laptop and going to smoke a cigar and doing work. It helps me focus
Hmm.
and keep what I got to do. I can listen to a podcast while I'm doing it because I can, especially if I'm in a groove, I can like kind of stop, think about what I'm doing,
Hmm.
especially if I'm in a routine and get it done. But if it's taking over 30 minutes, I have to like close my laptop sometimes because I can't just stare at my laptop all day. I got to like close it and take a break. So I understand definitely what you're talking about.
Yeah. And those breaks give you clarity because a lot of people say, well, I don't have time to take a break. Well, then you need to take longer breaks.
Hmm.
That's kind of paraphrasing a Buddha quote, or, somebody, it may have been Gandhi. It's like, I need, just meditate for 10 minutes. Well, I don't have 10 minutes to meditate. Okay. Well, then meditate for a half an hour. And
Hmm.
there's a play on words, but it's like, okay, you got to learn how to do that. And when you step away from work, just for 5 minutes, like go outside, or unless the weather's lousy, then go
Yeah.
to the washroom, wash your face with cold water, or like in my situation with no hair, I can wash my entire head. Um, I actually convinced a guy in the bathroom many years ago. I was in there, and as guys, we don't talk in the bathroom.
Hmm.
For the women listening to the show, it's like, yeah, we don't talk in the bathroom. I know women tend to, from what I've heard, but men we don't. But
Hmm.
I I washed my I was in the sink. He was in the next sink over, so I'm washing my head, soap water and all that stuff, give me a nice little refresh, and then I'm drying my face off, and he goes, "You've convinced me." And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I've never met him before. Never said a word to him. I'm like,
Hmm.
convinced you of what? And he was balding a bit. He said,
Hmm.
I've been thinking about just shaving all my hair off, but I've been kind of reluctant to it. But I'm guessing what you just did is so refreshing that I'm going to do it. I said, oh yeah, it's literally a boost to my day. It's like, okay, I'm refreshed just by washing my face, and in my case, my entire head. But you
Hmm.
don't have to shave your head to do that. You can wash your face. It's very refreshing for me anyway. And it kind of gives you a reset. You step away from it, and then you give yourself a little bit of time. Don't have to take a lot, but just a little time. Then you can get back at it. And usually, when you've been able to step away from it a little bit, things kind of calm down a little bit. You relax. You do something tactile, and then what happens is clarity starts to return. And then that thing you might have been struggling with, like, okay, what do I want to write in this email, or what number should I come up with, or I wonder would be the best page on their site that we could really fix that can help them with getting their rankings up.
Yeah.
And you
So
do that, it makes such a big difference.
yeah, and I understand that because once I start to get irritated and frustrated, there's
Hmm.
nothing you can teach me, tell me. I won't receive anything that you say. So like I
Right.
have to step away,
Hmm.
close it up, and let my brain chill for a minute. Then
Yep.
come back and be like, oh, okay, I know
Hmm.
what I missed, or I know whatever, and I'm
Yep.
able to learn from that. But once I'm
Hmm.
frustrated and irritated, and you can't tell me nothing.
Right. Oh
You
yeah.
can't even tell me how to get home.
Yeah. That's not how I get home. Even you could literally be the next house over. That's not how I get home. I go that
Hmm.
way. And well, your house is over there. I go that
Yeah.
way. All right.
So I mean, I definitely get that. So I do want to talk. You do a podcast. You host a podcast. I want to
Yes,
talk
I do.
about that. Talk to me about your podcast.
Yeah, launched it back in 2017, so I've been doing it for quite a while now. Absolutely love it, which is funny because I didn't want to do a podcast in the first place, but
Hmm.
a colleague of mine, Steve, really encouraged me to do so, and I listened to him begrudgingly, but I did,
Hmm.
and here we are, in entering into year 9 of the show. Just celebrated an
Congratulations.
anniversary in February. Thank you. Yeah, I get to talk to some amazing human beings all around the globe, and it's such a fun thing to do because I learn a ton from the people
Hmm.
that whether if I'm on a show
Hmm.
or if I'm hosting, and I'm not, I'm naturally curious at this age, and ask about different things and get insights to what people do, and
Hmm.
why they like doing it. Not in a judgmental way, just to like
Hmm.
curious. Like, okay, why did this resonate with you? Because some people who's listening might be thinking, you know what, I've been thinking about going into this type of work, but
Hmm.
I don't know. So all of a sudden you have a guest that's talking about that, and all of a sudden it helps paint the picture where that person that's listening could see themselves doing that role.
Hmm.
And when you have that type of opportunity for people just to listen to a conversation and potentially grow, and that's the whole premise behind the show, is I want people to grow. I want people to be better. Why?
Yes.
Because if people are better at what they do, or they go into a new field where they are really passionate about it and they love doing it and they're really good at it, society benefits from it. We all benefit
You're right.
when we're all thriving and growing. And I am of the abundance mentality where there's
Hmm.
more than enough to go around for all of us, and we still wouldn't crack the nut in all that's
Hmm.
available. There is no limit to your growth other than yourself. And that's when you learn, and when you get to a certain level, then you learn some new things. You just keep learning and keep being curious, and keep just talking with all kinds of different people and pick up different perspectives. And I think back 8 years ago to now, how I am as an individual, and my own knowledge and things. And I realize that still a ton of things I want to learn. There's a ton of things that I have learned, and I'm thrilled for that. And some I'm I want to say addicted, but I'm addicted to learning. Like I love
Yeah.
learning about different things and curiosity, and like, okay, where did this come from, and what about this? And sometimes social media can help you with that, and it can say, well, here, this thing is called this, and this is what it's for. Why is that there? Those types of things. And I'm not going to bash social media by any stretch.
Mhm.
You can use it however you see fit,
For
and
sure.
it's one of the positives about it. It can be different things for different people. So just find your use out of it to give you either the entertainment you need or the information you need to be entertained or a better person, and then the whole world will benefit from it.
Yeah, I always say social media is a gift and a curse sometimes because I'm in a wheelchair and I had to like look at people, whether it was fake or not. Like, but I had to see people that look like me thriving in this world, um, doing good because I was very like, I don't know if I'm gonna have the life that I want being in a wheelchair. So I had to actually look at like disabled people doing things in that community. And so that part was good, but there's a lot of times where social media is terrible.
Yeah.
So it is a good and bad things. Um, with your podcast, and we've been talking about burnout. Do
Hmm.
you? I know mine. I've been doing mine since October 2020. No, 21. 21.
Okay.
I started in 21.
Uh,
The beginning of 21, March. I just got over 100 episodes, but I
Beautiful.
experienced some burnout with that. Do you ever experience burnout doing podcasting?
Where my energy is, how I'm feeling, am I feeling fatigued, am I feeling drained, all of those kind of things. So I've got those basically levers and checkpoints throughout things. So I sense I'm like, okay, it's been a bit much, maybe I need to scale this back a little bit. And throughout the years, I, when you're recording and you're doing a lot of recording and all of that, it can get overwhelming, especially if there's other things going on in life, or be something as simple as you're fighting off a cold. And I've had a
Hmm.
couple colds this winter, that pretty much held me back for 10 to 12 days. And it's like, this is
Oh,
annoying. And it's usually
yeah.
because, knock on wood, I normally don't get them, but for some reason
Hmm.
this season I did. And so there was a couple days where it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to reschedule some shows because I was coughing all the time, or my voice
Hmm.
was to the point where it's like I can't speak a lot.
Hmm.
So, which you kind of need to, and being a host of a podcast or a guest on a podcast, it's kind of required. I'm sure there
Yeah.
are sign language shows, where you're not using. I would be stunned if there isn't. If there isn't, there should
Hmm.
be, because there's a vast audience of people that would benefit from that.
Hmm.
But for me, it was like, okay, I know that. But to get to your question, yeah, there's definitely potential for it. And I know a lot of, we see it a lot where a lot of influencers on social media have said, I'm burned out, I got to take a break. And
Hmm.
eh, in those situations, when you're so focused on building your brand and building your company or building whatever you're building, you got to check in with yourself and kind of say, okay, how am I doing? And I mean, literally, not that superficial. You see somebody in an elevator, hey, how you doing, kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
you gotta get real with yourself. And I know a lot of
Hmm.
people don't like doing that because they don't like what they see. But again, going back to what I said before, you got to love yourself. And if you love yourself,
Hmm.
you're gonna have that tough conversation with yourself, going,
For
okay,
sure. Hmm.
okay, Mike, how you doing today? How you feeling? And I think over time, especially if you're a host of a podcast,
Hmm.
you'll get your you'll figure out your flow. And again, each week can be a little bit different, again, depending on how you're feeling and whatnot, and what's going on in your personal life or work life or things like that. But once you get an understanding of how your energy flows throughout the day or throughout the week, then you can start adjusting things accordingly. And I've done that. I've shifted around, when I record my show a bunch over the years and
Mm-hmm.
continue to do so because I'm like, okay, this day feels better because I'm more engaged. I'm more curious these days. Like, okay, on this
Mm-hmm.
day, no, not a chance. Or after a certain time of the day, no. It's like I'm an early riser, so if someone says, "Well, let's do a 5 o'clock in the evening, podcast interview," I'll muster up the energy. But it's gonna, and not that I'm sleeping. I'm not that old yet, but getting there. Um, early dine for the win. Uh, but
Yeah.
for me, I know that at 5 o'clock, I'm not at my optimum best.
Yeah.
But if that's the only time that's available for a guest or for me to be on a
Mm-hmm.
show, and I want to be on the show or I want to have this conversation,
Got the exception. The exception.
then I will do whatever I need to do to make sure that I am fully present there. Again, the more you understand yourself and how you feel, not just from a physical standpoint, but from an energetic standpoint and a mental standpoint, you'll get better in matching the work that you do or the tasks you do with where that energy is throughout the day. And it's one of those ongoing things because our energy flows like this. Now some people
Mm-hmm.
might be
Mm-hmm.
figure out a way to kind of harmonize that because that's jagged edge, that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's only so much 5 hour energy you can drink in a day safely. Some
I don't
people
know a
say
lot
don't.
of hours.
Yeah, it's like for me, I'll have I drink kind of a half and half decaf and regular coffee in the morning. I'll have a
Okay.
couple cups, and then I switch to a herbal tea of some sort. Most of them are supposed to be caffeine free, although I had tea earlier. I don't think it was caffeine free because I felt I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little jittery. I'm like, did I have
Mm-hmm.
something? I got to dig up that pack and look at it. Says, does it say caffeine free? I'm thinking it wasn't, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But again, it's as a host, doesn't matter if you're hosting a show or the work you do. Excuse me.
Okay.
It's just important for you to figure out how you feel and how you operate throughout the day and do your best to align the tasks that you need to do with your energy
Mm-hmm.
levels. And when you do that, you operate in a state of flow. And when you're in that state of flow, life actually gets a bit easier. Not going to be
Yeah.
easy, but it gets easier.
Well, I know how I like to do it sometimes when I'm in a flow. Here's the thing: at the end of the day, in a month, I can take a couple months off. If you got
Hmm.
4 weeks in a month, and
Hmm.
I do four interviews and I release them once a week, I can take some months off. So I like to, binge
Hmm.
interviews, and then when I
Yep.
want to take off, I got
Yep.
I got the archive, and I can say, you know what, I'm not gonna do any interviews right now. I'm just gonna chill,
Hmm.
and that kind of helps me out too. But
Yeah.
you're my first interview virtually in a while because I've been kind of burnt out doing virtual interviews. But like, if I can get an in person interview, that's been great for me. But like, I
Hmm.
haven't really been able to do virtual interviews in a while because I just been burnt out talking to people,
Yeah.
on the screen, and
Of course. Yeah.
so I experienced a different kind of burnt out, which I never experienced before. But you're my first virtual interview in a while.
Well, good. And good. A good topic for you to bring into it. Then that's for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Um, yeah, I like I said, I enjoy podcasting and things like that. I like you say, getting to talk to people. I've talked to a lot of people over the world, and so it's pretty cool. It's something that I get to do, and I love it. Now, in my regular life, I'm trying to start a career and things like that. Something that I like to do. I don't have to go to an office. I don't have to go anywhere. I can stay home and do it. I can work at night to do it. I can I can work and smoke a cigar. That's something I really want.
Those are those are important boundaries that you are firm on, and
Mhm.
thankfully, in this world, there are many opportunities that will allow you to do that. And when you get to work when you want to work, where you want to work, and do what you want to do, that's my definition of freedom. It gives you the
Mhm.
freedom to kind of drive your own ship. And when you get to do that, it now when you yell at the boss, you're yelling at yourself, but don't yell at the but
Yeah.
sometimes you need to. Sometimes we need a little swift kick in the what to kind of get us back into gear, because sometimes our ego, or we start leaning into the victim side of things. I'm like, I'm not making any time for that. It's like, here's the reality. This is what I have to do, or excuse me, this is what I get to do. Very
Hmm.
key thing, and you mentioned that a moment ago about I get to. A
Hmm.
lot of people say I have to, but when you say
Hmm.
I get to, it's
Yeah.
it's it's one different word, but it has such a huge meaning to it. And we
Yep.
get to do things. Why? Because we're fortunate enough to still be alive, and
Hmm.
we have things that we get to do to help each other, grow and reach our dreams and aspirations, and all the things we enjoy doing in life. We can all help each other out, and when we have that mindset to do whatever we can to help others, in return, it comes back to us. It may not be directly from the person we help, but it could be from somebody else. And just understanding that and continuing to pay it forward in any way that we can makes such a big
Yes, sir.
difference. And it helps reduce our stress. And if we have reduced stress, then we don't have to worry about burnout.
Yes, sir. I like that a lot. Um, Before we get off here, I would like to say thank you for being on the show,
My pleasure.
talking
Thank you.
about burnout.
Mhm.
I definitely enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Me too.
So, before we get off, is there any last words you want to say?
Yeah, I think just for everybody, just, figure out how to take care of yourself, and what that looks like for you uh, may be different than others, but figure out what your ideal life feels like and tastes like and looks like, and do everything you possibly can to move towards that, because life is meant to be lived. And yes, there's challenges, there's going to be ups and downs and all of that, but when you can operate in your sweet spot and create and make things to help other people, it's something that is so worthwhile, and it just it gives you that creative juice and creative spark to just continue to do things, and you can always change your mind and do different things in life. I know I have in my life. So just make sure you take care of yourself first, because in that way, when you are helping others, they're getting the best version of you.
Sir, I like that. Well, thank you again, man. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you.